Goes as is. We have those means as well.
Okay.
That always makes me feel better because I'm like, okay, if I say something real dumb, they can handle it. So
That's good. Yeah. We
okay,
should be
cool.
fine.
All right, cool. And any last things before we start?
No, I'm excited to see what you got. It's good
No
to see you.
pressure. Okay, good. April's coming back in. I think we're ready now. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Today we have a very special guest, Angela Bradford, who I've known now probably almost about a year. We kind of run in the same entrepreneur circles, and she's got an amazing story consistently of overcoming adversity. And I really love it because anytime I have people who are like, I just don't know, that just seems real hard. And I'm referring to either entrepreneurship or even 75 Hard or some of the other things, kind of like how when we had Caitlin on the show, I love to use you, Angela, as an example because it's like, listen, if Angela can do it, why can't you do it? These are all just like self-limiting beliefs. So you are an amazing example of overcoming adversity on a daily basis. And I love your story. So welcome to the show.
Well, thanks. I'm excited. This will be great.
Awesome. So, why don't you give us a little bit of your backstory and why I'm saying all those amazing things that I'm saying?
Well, I don't know why the amazing things, but I'll definitely give you my backstory. I grew up, so I guess way back, I'm homeschooled, grew up on a farm, got into horses in my teenage years, I guess, and got into riding horses. Then I went into the driving industry, got into truck driving in connection with that. So I worked a lot of different, jobs and positions, transitioned into the financial industry from that, which was like blue collar to white collars. That was quite a big transition in 2015 and came full time in 2016 into that industry. Started having, this is a very shortened version, obviously you can go into whatever parts you want. But in 2019, started going through testing, 2019, June, got diagnosed with MS, which is an autoimmune disease, or whatever you want to call it. And then, yeah, just kind of been continuing my life ever since then. We're running a business in Canada and the US, and yeah, life's been really good, I gotta say.
Yeah, and this is and it affects, as you said, it's autoimmune, but it affects you physically, which affects you mentally. And I don't think, I possibly, but I don't know that our viewers understand the severity of how this can affect you. Can you go into that a little bit?
I sure can. So MS, or multiple sclerosis, is an autoimmune disease. Basically what it means is the body attacks itself like any autoimmune. But what it does is, specifically in MS, is it attacks a myelin sheath that surrounds the nerves. So the body attacks itself. You have what's called a relapse, or something like that. And what happens is the body attacks itself. So if you picture like a hot dog and a hot dog bun, it eats the hot dog bun and leaves the hot dog raw. And so basically your nerve is raw. So, or another way that I like to picture it is like a light switch. So if you have a light switch, you turn the light switch on and there's like a cord running from the light switch to the light. And there's like little spots in the cord where there's no plastic around it. It can kind of short out, I guess you could say. So in MS, we kind of have that in our body, and myelin sheaths naturally do not grow back. So once they're attacked, what the damage that's done, according to doctors, I'm going to say, the damage that's done is the damage that's done. And so I had 2 relapses in a year, which is pretty intense, apparently. And so I went from, totally being fine to having 2 relapses, which has really affected my walking skills. And everyone's affected differently with MS. That's the thing. There is no hard and fast. One person, that might be it, and they might never have any more symptoms for the rest of their life. Another person, gets a few of those throughout their life. They end up in a wheelchair or something like that. So there's just so many, MS can take you so many different ways. I guess that's where the the mental part comes in, is kind of facing the different ways that it can affect you.
And so what came first, your trip into entrepreneurship or this discovery that you have MS and the first onset? What was sort of the catapult or catalyst in either one of those?
One second. Being you have cut options, take it. So basically I started into entrepreneurship first in 2015, hardcore. I mean, I was already a horse trainer from the time I was 18 on for myself. So I've kind of have always been around, to be honest, being an entrepreneur. When I was truck driving as a subcontractor truck driver. So I never really actually was an employee a lot of my life. I mean, I drove a school bus, so I was there, but my dad ran a business. So I've always been around that business mentality, business mindset. When I started my financial brokerage and came full-time with 2016. So I was hardcore now, like on my own, running a business, recruiting, building, all of that kind of stuff. So I guess that was where I guess the real like business ownership kind of started, was 2016, 2015. And then I got diagnosed in 2019. So I was already hard into the entrepreneur, which I'm really grateful for, because I was also hardcore into personal development. Mm-hmm. And if I hadn't been down that track, because that did start in about 2016, 2017, where I really got into the personal development side. I probably would have reacted to the MS. I know a lot differently than I did, because of all the personal growth that I was able to go through a few years before actually getting a diagnosis.
Oh, that makes so much sense to me. And it's interesting, and I want to circle back to this, but my daughter got diagnosed with alopecia areata when she was only like 7 years old. And for like a young preteen girl to start losing chunks of your hair, like, you know, and she would try to cover it and she would try to hide it. And same thing, we took her to doctor after doctor, and basically we're being told like, sorry, this is what it is. There's no rhyme or reason. Don't know how bad or good it's going to get, but you should probably prepare for the worst. She may just lose all her hair by the time she's like 12 years old. And to hear that as a preteen, it was devastating. And I decided I'm not going to let that be the reality. And so we started researching a lot of alternative doctors who weren't in that sort of mainstream thinking, and started looking at the physical aspects. And we realized, hey, she had cut out meat because she really didn't like what was happening with the animals, and went totally vegetarian. And we supplemented it with a lot of soy. And she was allergic to soy. We didn't realize that. And so it absolutely created this condition. And so by just taking that out and putting meat back in, and all kinds of different supplements, and we did acupuncture, we did so many alternative things, but it stopped, or at least slowed down what was happening. And had we just taken the diagnosis from the doctors and listened, you know, I can't imagine where she would be now. And it seems like you sort of followed a similar path, as far as like not just accepting that this is your fate and deal with it.
No, exactly. I mean, there's so many other things out there. I will say, like, I do follow the doctor's somewhat recommendations too. I'm not like, I guess, like, oh my gosh, I'm just going to sit here and not do anything the doctor says. I'm not that. So I'm on a pretty good autoimmune suppressant twice a year. So I am on that one. But I also believe in the power of the meditation, power of the mind. And I know that what we put on the universe, we bring back into our lives. And so I know that I brought this on myself. And for anyone listening to this, if you got some kind of something in your life, I'm not saying that about you, but for me, I know 100% I brought this on myself. And therefore it's here for a reason, and it's here for me to learn and grow. And until I've reached the lessons that I'm supposed to learn from it, it will stay in my life. And so I've been having a lot more breakthroughs actually in the last little bit about like why it's in my life and what I can learn from it, because everything in our life we can learn from. And normally we actually learn the most from the adversity in our life, not from the good things in our life. So the adversity is actually what changes our life can change our life, I guess, in a really positive direction, even more than the quote good things or successes in our life, which is something I've definitely learned.
And is that what you mean by, you know, you brought this on yourself? You obviously didn't create this condition intentionally or otherwise. What do you mean more so into that? And believe me, I love the full accountability and responsibility. That 100% aligns with everything we're talking about.
Actually, like I'll say, I've got some twisted thinking, and I know this, and a lot of people do, I guess. I'm not, but I know I have some twisted thinking. So a couple things. When I got diagnosed, I read a book called Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. Yep. Highly recommended. And I read it about 2 months after I got diagnosed, and 2 or 3 months, whatever. And I read it. It talks about how we stress ourselves to the point of an autoimmune disorder. And I was like, oh yeah, I did that. And when I say I did that, I was conscious, like I said. So when I was truck driving, I was running crazy hours, running night and day a lot of times. And a lot of people told me I was going to burn out. And when people started telling me I was going to burn out, I said, no, watch me. And I started pushing myself harder and harder and harder to see if I could actually break my body down, if I could actually go into a breakdown. Like I said, I know not healthy thinking, not at all, but I was conscious of trying to see how hard I could push myself and that I wasn't breaking. And then I went into the financial services, same thing. I could work 24 hours a day pretty much. So I did. I started running, still running really hard, literally trying. This sounds so bad, but literally trying to see where my breaking point was. And I did that for like combined probably 7 years. And, I did. I broke. I really broke. I got MS. And so it was not totally unconscious. It was a conscious decision to see where I could break and as I got closer to MS and started going through diagnosis, I wanted a challenge. I wanted something in my life that would challenge me. I'm reading about personalities right now, and I totally get where that comes from, because my personality is a D if you're into any of that, and it's about challenge. So I was like, that's why. Not good thinking, not worth the challenge. Tell you what. However, it was a conscious decision that I wanted to challenge. MS, when I started getting tested, I was like, MS sounds doable. It doesn't kill you. Cancer to me sounded scary. MS sounded doable. And this sounds so bad. But like I said, I've really faced all this, I guess, and gone through it and realized that, we think the weirdest thing. So combined with just stressing my body out, consciously stressing my body out, and not looking after myself. I mean, everyone has autoimmune stuff in their body. It's whether or not they come out or not. So in this case, like, I stressed myself to the point where it came out, and now it's in my life. However, because I believe that I caused it, I also believe that, I believe in God very strongly. So I believe that it can be healed, but I thought it'd be healed within a year, to be quite honest. And I realized that it's not, but why it's not is because I haven't learned everything I need to learn. So one thing that was really faulty thinking, of course. Yeah. That was false, and that wasn't good thinking. And then there's just been one thing after the other of why this is in my life. And like I said, until I learn my lessons from it, it's going to stay there. And so I get that. And even past that, maybe there's a purpose that I don't understand at that point. But right now I know that there's a bunch of purposes that I'm working through.
Yeah, I mean, it totally makes sense, and it's very similar to addiction. Nobody goes into addiction wanting to become a drug addict or an alcoholic. However, we put ourselves in this environment over and over and over to test those limits and see what we can. For me, it was what I can achieve, what I could overcome. I loved staying up on meth for many days. I was so productive. Look at all the stuff I could do while everybody else is sleeping. I could do even more. And oh my God, I don't need to eat. And look how skinny I'm getting. And it creates this false sense of like I could do anything. Not superiority, that wasn't the word I was looking for, but more like invincibility.
Yes.
And I think for a lot of us in addiction, at least early on, that is the mindset. So it's very similar.
And work is an addiction.
100%.
That a lot of people, that's an approved addiction.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's the same mindset as far as like overcoming, okay, what happened? Let's clean up the wreckage, but now what can we do so that we don't do that again? And what are the lessons to learn by this? Yeah. And so in many ways, I believe that people who've gone through treatment after addiction are in kind of like you, a better place, because they've taken that time to sort of soul search and why did I create this in my life? Why did these things happen? Mm-hmm. What did I do to create them? And now what do I need to do to overcome them? And because of that deep work that a lot of people who maybe aren't extreme as you or extreme as an addict don't ever get that opportunity. And so their baseline just kind of stays right in the middle without any of the really deep work.
Amen. Yeah. And I never got into drugs when you mentioned that, because addiction does run in my family. My dad was in drugs, left our family a few times on cocaine and stuff. And so I didn't get into that, but he was also a workaholic. And that one became my identity. And that was a good identity. People bragged to me about it. Like, man, she can outwork anyone. She can do all this. And I was like, that was my identity. So one of my first big learnings, I guess, from my MS is my identity was taken away from me. And when I lost it, like literally had my legs taken out from under me, I had to learn a new identity. And I'm still working on that, to be quite honest. Coming on 3 years, but still definitely working on that, because I couldn't work as hard as I used to work. My body just won't let me. I try and then it shuts me down. And if I really push it, I also am conscious that if I push it, the chances of a relapse are high, because that's what causes relapses is stress. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, and so my team and my people in my world are like, you have to look after yourself, because if you don't, you're being selfish. And that concept is different for me, because if I go into a relapse and say I went into a wheelchair, or who knows, lost being able to use my hands as much, or I don't know, whatever, how much that would affect where my goal is to, you know, create a difference out there and create a change out there in the world, would take away some of that. So you have to look after yourself in order to move forward. And that's definitely been a relearning at 30 something years of old, to try to reprogram my whole 30 life back.
Yeah, well, I think we get so conditioned as sort of workaholic entrepreneur types that I'll do anything for my team, my kids, my family. I'll do anything for anybody, but myself was always like, that's fine. I can just keep going forward, and I'll take care of myself later. And it's really only been for me in the last couple of years where my kids went off to college, and, you know, with the COVID and everything, I moved me to the top because I could. I wasn't having to care for, you know, little ones and all the other stuff, and dumping all of that energy into myself was like the best thing I've ever done for myself, because I made me number one, and then everything else takes care of itself, as opposed to me trying to take care of everything else and me being last, and nothing is really going as good as it should be. Yeah, can't help anyone if you can't, you know, help yourself. But like I said, back to the addiction, if I got into it, you were talking about, Matt, I'd have been right there with you. I could hear it. I'm like, wow, it made you work harder. Oh, bad. Good thing I never went down that track. Yeah. Don't just ignore that word I said. Don't even think about that drug whatsoever.
That would have been really bad for me. That's why I didn't go down that, because I know my personality, and I know that would have been where I tracked.
Yeah, 100%. And of course, everybody's attracted to different drugs, you know, depending on where they're at in life. And for me, it was always that productive, high level producing. And so it's interesting when you start to look at what people gravitate towards. Some just want to check out, and they're way more like into like the opiates and that sort of thing. But then producers like us, they really want that more speedy type feeling. So yeah, no, definitely good you didn't do that. I can't imagine you doing that, plus the workaholic, plus where you ended up. That would be bad. And I think
bad,
and I think our bodies have a way of doing that. Like, that's something that I'm very mindful of, is if I don't consciously take the time to rest and recharge, my body will take me out with a cold, with a sickness, with an illness, with an injury. Like, you know, when you start pushing yourself, and it's really important to learn what your limit is. If you don't listen, it'll listen for you and make it happen.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So it was interesting. You and I were at the same conference together, and Ed Milet showed that video, and I didn't really have a big understanding of MS. I haven't personally known anybody with it, but that video was amazing. And you, I'm sure you know what. Of course, you know which video I'm talking about. Yeah. But it was amazing to see somebody like that pushing themselves. And this was about a girl who would run marathons with MS, and she would push herself so hard to get across that finish line and be winning, but then literally collapse at the end of it. And I can only imagine her recovery from pushing herself that hard was like weeks, like relapse, like you talked about.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I mean, one thing neat about MS, and I don't even know her pullback would be that long, because what happens is it overheats. So like doing 75 hard, obviously, not as extreme as her, but at the end of a 45-minute walk, I'm having issues, major issues. But, you know, probably 20, 30 minutes later, I'm normal again. So what happens is the body like overheats. And so it's interesting in that it's like, it's not like permanent. Well, it can be more of a permanent damage, because if you went into a relapse, but really it's like, it's different. Like if someone works out that's healthy, they push themselves and do like 30 minutes and 40 hour, whatever. Whereas MS is like an Olympic athlete, actually, is how they described it to me, which sounds great. So basically, it's really fast and stop, and really fast and stop. So back to that light switch, as long as that wire, gets a cooling period, it's okay. But if you keep running the heat on that wire, eventually you have a fire, electrical fire. So we're kind of the same way. If we keep pushing through the pain or through the tiredness, which I have to watch that I don't do that, which is my natural bent before, it gets worse. And then it will get worse faster. So when you keep hitting that wall, we call it it's just like this exhaustion wall. When you hit that, if you keep hitting that, it moves back faster and faster. So you hit it faster and faster. So it doesn't actually make you tougher, it makes you weaker. So you have to stop before you hit those walls and those breaks, or it actually makes you quit sooner. So you can't push through it like you can with like a normal healthy body. You push through that stuff, you break muscles, whatever, you build muscles up. That's what you do. You push through your tiredness, and then you have like a second win. You don't get that with MS. So you push through it. Now that tiredness will come sooner. So instead of coming in like an hour, it'll come in like half an hour. It'll start to shorten your period of what you can productively do. So in order to go faster, you actually have to stop more.
Wow. Which, that's a completely different learned way of living for you.
Yeah. So the other day I had like 3 naps. That's phenomenal. I love it. So
wow.
That's kind of like and they're like 10-minute, 20-minute cat naps, but they're like phenomenal. I wake up and I'm like raring to go, and I'm like fired up, and we're good to go. If I don't do that, which sometimes I don't still, and I push through that exhaustion, it doesn't get better. By the end, I'm worse and I'm worse and I'm worse. So I got to take that 10 minute of just sleep, and then I can get back up and go, and it's like, oh yeah, we're good to go again for another however many hours. But if I don't do that, then it's it's not good. So you gotta stop, take the breather, and then you can go again.
Well, and that's amazing you found that. I am not a napper. That would be so hard for me. I don't know. I mean, I guess I would learn to, but I can't.
I was a napper
now.
before. So truck driving, I learned how to nap.
Okay.
My dad's a napper. He's from Louisiana. So we had to have naps growing up. And then at one point, I didn't want to have naps. Obviously, as a kid, you hate it. I think at 12, I was still pretty young. I started to like naps. And, which is probably, like I said, looking back, is that a good thing. So I started wanting my naps at 12 on. I think I pretty much had naps most days by choice. And then, truck driving, whenever you're stopped, you're sleeping because you never know when you're driving. So you just got to learn to condition the body. And so coming into this, I guess it's already a conditioned body that it's we're good with napping. If we got a downtime, lay down, you're out. And so I guess it worked out good.
Yeah, no, it sounds perfect. It set you up for success right now.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I would be in deep trouble. I don't know what it is about napping, but I hate it. I think because if I finally get to a point where I am napping, if I go in and I come out, I'm so disoriented, and it doesn't recharge me. It messes me up.
Yeah. You gotta short naps.
Yeah.
That's what they say, cat naps. Mm-hmm. Then you're still good to go. If you have an hour, 2-hour nap, which I do on Sundays, that's my catch up day. Then normally, I'm a little more groggy afterwards.
That's awesome. Just to go slightly back, I have a condition. It's nothing like yours, but it is a heart condition with a similar type thing. There's no electricity from the top to the bottom of my heart, and typically that means I need a pacemaker. Somehow my heart functions without this, which is 1 in a million, but it's a similar thing. I could do short bursts, quick workouts, as long as it goes up, and then I let it come right back down, which is why I'm super good with CrossFit workouts. It's super intense, but then you back off and rest and relax. Mm-hmm. But I could never be a marathon runner, because it would take it up to that level and peg it at that level, and that would be what would take me out.
Yeah.
So similar to you, I've had to learn how to do more of the quick, intense, and then take the rest, because I will never be a marathon runner unless I end up getting that pacemaker. But it's similar to that. So I understand that mentality as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Which, I actually like it very much. I get bored long distance. I would get super bored if I was just running for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah, so. I don't get it.
I know everyone's
you get a runner's high.
Runner's high. No. And I was I've never gotten a runner's high. Well, now I know why, because my heart won't allow that. But also, I just get bored. But
yeah.
Some
like, this
people,
is just
some people really
exhausting.
dig that. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So what are you doing now? What does your routine look like now? And has it lessened for you in the last couple years doing all these things that you've implemented into your life?
Like health wise lesson, I don't know that I'd say there was, I don't know. Some people say I walk better. I don't know that there's been any like that I've noticed substantial. I did go through Dr. Joe healing clinic. And after that, my leg,
Dr. Joe Dispenza?
yeah.
Nice.
And after that, my leg, it was worse before. There was just a weird feeling in it. It wasn't that yeah, there was a weird feeling that went away in the second day of, actually Healy meditation, which is pretty intense.
What is that
And
called?
it hasn't come back. Healy meditation
Okay.
calls the people that they, meditate with coherence meditation. They call them Heelys. So I was a Healy.
Was that with the wrist straps and the frequencies?
Nope. They just put you in meditation and they just meditate.
Okay.
And so you're at home and they're at their convention. So I've gone to like obviously Joe Dispenza live too, and then
Wow.
they reached out to me to be a Healy after that, which was pretty cool. And so that was a really neat experience. As far as everything else, like I'm working out now. I finally got where I'm on a 15-minute a day, pretty consistent workout, which is, I know 15 minutes for some people is not any time. For me, that's a lot. I've never, quote, been a workout person. So just being consistent and doing something. So normally stretching, because stretching is really good for MS. And I feel the difference when I don't. So stretching, and now it's nicer outside again. And so I'm back to bike riding. So really working on building up my muscles, I guess, and like working on them. And that's been really helpful. Like the more I work out, the more I do, obviously, the better condition I'm in. Eating wise, just, I'm not super strict on my quote a diet, but I do eat really healthy, relatively healthy, I guess I should say. I've cut out caffeine. I've cut out most desserts, cut out chocolate, cut out alcohol. So I've cut out a lot of stuff that I guess for anybody's not really the healthiest. So it's good all around to be able to be healthier and just give myself more energy and keep working on the core. And really, I mean, like I talked about there before, it's really not even about the body, it's about the mind. And the mind has all the control over the body anyway. So that I'm obsessed with. That I do a lot of reading, lots of audio, lots of personal growth conferences, all of that kind of good stuff. Because really, if we can change our thinking, we can completely heal our body. So
yeah, 100%. And we're definitely aligned on that. I feel exactly the same way. And I saw you do 75 hard. I'm like, I can't even believe this. Like, this is hard for me. I can't even imagine. I mean, I can imagine because I saw your videos and you were just very genuine and candid. And I appreciated so much sort of sharing the struggle of trying to get that done.
Yeah, it was super hard. And so I did phase 2, not in the phase they're supposed to do within a year, but it was phase 2. And I did it this last year in November. And that was actually the hardest phase of all 3 that I've done. Because so I was doing phase 2 and then I got diagnosed. I tested positive and I couldn't fly home from Florida. Mm-hmm. So I ended up driving from Florida to Montana while doing 75 hard, while dealing with the vid, while running my business. And no one had any clue that I had, that it was that hard. Yeah. But I remember I could barely walk. Like I have a hard time walking as it is. With that, I could barely walk, barely walk. So 45 minutes was just, it was very painful. Just like not physically painful, but like mentally, like just like it's so slow. And then I was dealing with, all the stuff, fevers, all the stuff of, and dealing with that. And literally, most days I would cry. Mm-hmm. I lay in bed and I just bawl because I couldn't quit. I couldn't quit 75 hard. I just couldn't let myself
quit. Why is that? Why do you feel like you just couldn't? Like you of all people had like the biggest pass in the world of like, we get it, why you can't complete this. What drives you to say you couldn't?
I don't know. Honestly, I was praying and I was like, God, why can't I be like, why can't I quit? Why can't I be average? Why can't I be like anyone else? Why can't I just be like, hey, I'm not feeling well. I'm taking this off or whatever.
Yeah.
I just couldn't. And I was like, you just freaking do it. Like one more day, one more moment, just like get through it. And I don't know, like I still not 100% sure where that mindset comes from of like, there was no way I was quitting. And I could not let myself quit, period. And so I was just like one day at a time. It was really hard. There were some days I didn't eat because I just didn't feel like it. And I knew I had to eat because obviously I'm working out, but like super low intensity workouts, obviously, but still doing something, running on not a lot of sleep, like probably not the healthiest thing. Like I said, I'm still working on a lot of the stuff in my mind. Like why? I don't know why. I just couldn't. When I got done that phase 2, I was like, that was the hardest freaking couple of weeks of my life. And I think part of it was, again, to challenge me and to push myself in a weird, like more, very much in a mental way. I mean, physically, yes, mentally it was harder than anything I've been through, to be honest, that I remember. And because I just like every day was breakdown. And even when I got diagnosed, it wasn't really that hard. This was like tough. And just dealing with like the whole like mental, like you can do it, you can go through this, you're here for a purpose, you're given the strength for a reason. And I think that a lot of like, I don't know who all your listeners are, but you know, if you guys are going through something that's tough, there's a reason you're going through it. Toughness is not because you're being tested. It's because you're worthy of the fire, because through the fire is where you become a diamond. So, you know, the more struggles that you can go through and challenges you can go through and come out like gold, the stronger you're going to be and the more impact you're going to have in your life. And most people that I see look at challenges that come in like things like this, that it's like, it's, you know, I'm not meant to do it or I'm supposed to quit. No, it's sometimes, and you know, you got to decide, but sometimes it's like, you need to go through that fire so that you can come out stronger. And I know coming out of that, I was definitely a lot stronger by a lot, in a lot of different ways than whenever I went into it, just because of like the mental shift. And I knew that I was there for a purpose. I knew that I'm here for a reason. And I knew that everything going in my life was for a reason, so that I could have a story, so that I could help other people. And so like anyone listening, like I said, you're here for a purpose, just like you, Angie. Like, I mean, going through the drugs and going through all the stuff that you've been through. I mean, that's what you're using these platforms for, is to help other people. And that's why you went through it. Otherwise, you would have just had an average, ordinary life, which, you know, nothing wrong with that, by the way. But if you're going through a challenge, there's a reason for it. And it's to make you stronger so that you can help other people.
Oh, I 100% agree with that and align with that. And I love that you are mentioning that. And why we keep doing it too, right? Like I could have just gotten sober and been like, okay, I'm good. I handled it. But, you know, running a drug and alcohol treatment program in California for over 27 years, the amount of adversity. And I've often, like you, questioned, like, why do I keep doing this? Why do I, you know, I could have like this really easy life. Like, why is this something that I want to push myself through? And I think you hit it as far as like a bigger calling, a deeper purpose, because if not you, who? It's almost like an obligation. If you can handle it, so why would you not? This is what you need to do in order to put yourself in a position to help other people. So I think we definitely align in a similar calling of why we do these crazy things. And I mean, you take it to another level. When I think about 75 hard, I'm at the end. I've got like less than a week left and I'm like, oh, I'm just so tired. I know, but it's kind of like, okay, I mean, it's fine. I'm going to get through it. But listening to what you said, and Andy even sells this, it's a mental toughness program. And so for me, it's more like I'm mentally just like a little exhausted. But for what you went through, that you took it to the extreme as far as like the mental, physical side. And I love that, because I hear so many people they just drop off. Like we all start at the same time and, oh, I forgot to take my picture. Oh, I forgot to, do this. Oh, I didn't do that. And it's just like, and they just accept the loss, and some get back on, most don't, or they make more attempts, and their time staying on it lessens until they forget about it. And it really does just take not accepting, giving yourself that excuse to not do it. And it's amazing. And I've witnessed so many people that allow themselves to not do it with an excuse.
And it's really sometimes it's really hard for me to see that. Like I run a team, obviously, and so seeing people, I call it quitting on themselves. But I also am trying to become accepting that all of us only do the best that we're able to do. And and all of us are identity. Like I'm sure someone like Andy, well, actually maybe not Andy, but there's people that obviously what I do, they do better, or quote unquote, if I'm going to compare, which comparison is a robber of joy, and something I'm also working on. But I'm working on so many things, it's crazy. But accepting people where they're at, because it's easy to look down. Like for me, it's easy to quote look down and be like, well, I didn't and you did, like what's wrong with you? But then like they have so many strengths, and that's what I'm learning to look on people. Like they have so many strengths that maybe I don't have. Well, obviously I don't have. And instead of looking at the reason people quit on things is because of their identity. So if we can help people, including ourselves, obviously, raise our identity, then our circumstances in our life will align with that, because our thermostat will never, Ed talks about that all the time. The thermostat will never let us, go higher than whatever thermostat we're set at. And so, that's something, like I said, I'm working on understanding instead of being critical. And even if you're critical of others, you're critical of yourself. And so that's, like I said, I'm working through so much stuff, man. I could go for hours and hours, because like, and this is stuff I'm working on where, I was like, okay, I'm judging other people. Why am I judging other people? Because I'm judging myself. Like I said, why couldn't I quit? I don't know that that's healthy. I don't know that that was a good thing, but it is what it is. And it is where I'm at. And I'm still, analyzing like, what is right? What is healthy? What's the best? I don't know. I haven't got obviously all the answers, and I never will until I die. And I'm not ready to go there yet. So, but it's like, it's easy to, look down on other people or judge other people. And I feel that everyone's in their own journey. And if they quit or don't quit, and this is, like I said, I'm saying this isn't necessarily deep down thought yet, mindset, but if people quit or don't quit, maybe that's a strength too. Like maybe I should have quit.
Right.
Maybe the fact that I didn't quit is not as, like, people are like, wow, that's tough. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's because I won't love myself if I quit. And it needs to be deeper than that. And self-love needs to be deeper than that. And sometimes we push ourselves. High identity people are not high identity, but high performing people push themselves. And I don't know that it's always healthy. I don't know. This is something, like you said, I've really thought about. There's some people I could throw out names. I don't know that it's the right thing, or if in the pushing themselves, they're trying to prove something.
Yeah. Oh, I
think that's something I have to work on. So it seems really tough, and it's inspirational. And sometimes I'm like, yeah, but maybe it's not the healthiest. Maybe it's actually better to quit and to look after yourself and to, look after, like I said, I pushed myself to the point of an autoimmune disorder. That's not healthy. Right. Like, kudos to me, but it's not healthy. Like that, there's something wrong there. So sometimes it's like either way. And then the other way too, like if you quit and you're not supposed to quit, then you are quitting, and that's not good either. So really, like, analyzing. I don't know where I was going with all that, but
well, no, I agree. And you know what? Everybody's at a different point on their journey. I'm at this point on my journey because I did all the other stuff early on, and now I can be all in on this point of my journey. And I 100% get, like, everybody's not there. Just like if you're new in sobriety, I would never expect somebody to be where I'm at 27 years later. However, there's, like you said, and it's a fine line of, like, not giving up on yourself, not giving yourself an out, not giving yourself a back door, holding yourself accountable, but not to the point where it becomes unhealthy. And that's where, yeah, that self reflection and consistent daily, monthly, weekly inventory of where we're at and
Yes.
what is working, what isn't working, what's serving, what isn't serving. I mean, I almost have to do that daily. Like, is
Yeah.
this still serving me? It's making me feel a little weird right now. Like, I don't know if I love this. Should I love this? And am I just being
Hmm.
soft, or is it really just not working and I need to cut
Right.
it out? And so I think we're very fortunate, you and I, because we've delved so much into the self-help realm and all the amazing tools and podcasts and books and things that we've not even stumbled, we sought them out
Yeah.
upon, that we can use in our lives and then help others with those same tools.
Yes. Yeah. Totally. Agree with
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Well, you're definitely amazing, and like I said, I love meeting people like you, because it's, and again, I'm not judging people, but there's certain people early in recovery, early in, even, we have a CrossFit gym at work, and the first thing is like, oh, but I got this shoulder and I got this and I got that, and this creaky knee, and I didn't sleep great last night. And it's like,
Right.
I get it. I understand their bodies, but what can we be a little tougher on, and what should
Yes.
we like listen to, and just learning to navigate that, where you can hold yourself a little stronger, but not to the point where you're doing yourself in. So, and you
Yeah.
are like an
100%.
amazing extreme on that for both things, because you pushed yourself harder than so many people that I've seen. But it's interesting to see you questioning, is that too much?
Yes. There's an interesting, I don't know what the dichotomy is, that the right word? Like
Yeah,
you want to, but it's like, why are you pushing yourself?
yeah,
What are you trying to prove? Is it, that's your only worth? Then that's not healthy. And that's something that like I said, that's something that I believe I've struggled with, and still struggle with, my identity being tied in that pushing myself, instead of being in just, I am a child of God, and that's it. And then I'm worthy, instead of being like, well, I have to do this and this and this and this. And if I don't do that, then what am I here for? What's my purpose?
hmm,
And so, yeah, there is also the line where, I do see that. And I know people can push through that, or learn and personally develop, where, they're not dwelling on what they don't have, as their crutch, to be able to push through things and move on to the next levels. Like you said, didn't have a good sleep, boyfriend, freaking country song, dog ran away, like whatever.
exactly.
You can go through that, or you could choose to be like, hey, this stuff all happened. Okay, now what can I learn from it? And what can I push myself through so that I can get to the next level and learn, whether it's physically, emotionally, mindset, which all of them are hard.
Hmm.
Like physically is tough, mentally is tough, all of that stuff. And all of them take you to different levels in the different categories. If you can, push through it and then go to the next level, the next level, the next level, and start to level up. And as you start to do that, you start to see how many more levels there are. And you
Right.
start going, oh my gosh, it's a long ways to go. We start out, you're like, I'll be there like soon. And then you're like, there's no there. Like, we got a ways to go.
Yeah.
Um,
And we keep moving that marker, it's like, okay, I did that, felt pretty good, but look at that. Shouldn't I be going for that?
that's
And then
right.
we're just
Yeah.
constantly moving the goalposts, as they call it, because there's exponential physical, mental ways we can just keep leveling up. And you, like me, just completing it's not enough. It's like, now I got to do it again. I got to do it harder. I got to push myself a little more. And because we have that kind of mindset where
Yeah.
that's kind of like what drives us. And I think for myself, I love it. If I didn't have that, I would be complacent and lazy and fat. Like, that fear of me going back to that place really frightens me, so I'm constantly pushing to never go back there. And the more you level up, that just means it's even higher. You got to keep going in order to just achieve what you used to be able to do the minimum on achieving.
Correct. Yeah. And then just being around higher achieving people and whatever level I guess you want to say, but people that push you, that's really important. I mean, obviously that's why we're in some of the groups we're in, to be around people that actually push us to be more, and aren't like, oh, you're doing so good. Instead being like, oh, you're doing good, but what if you tweak this as this? Like, you could be better.
Right.
And life could be better, and your impact could be more, and all that stuff. And being around people like that can say that is like, that's powerful, obviously, too. And that's really helpful, be able to help you level up.
100%. And that's probably been the biggest thing that's happened for me in the last year and a half is getting myself in these kind of groups so that there is a point to push, as opposed to, I remember, like at the beginning of COVID, where I was almost helpless and hopeless. It's like, I just don't even know what to do. I was almost paralyzed. I was like, I don't know what to do. And getting myself in these groups and doing 75 hard, you start to realize what you should be doing, could be doing, want to be doing, need to be doing. And it really does help, like, turn on all those creative juices and physical challenges to push yourself. And for me, that is such a more comfortable place than having that paralysis of not knowing what to do. It's like, I kind of like right now with all the, I'm in like 4 different entrepreneur groups. I'm a little overwhelmed with everything I should be doing. I am like at my capacity as far as what I'm able to achieve. But at the same time, I'll take that all day, any day, over just not knowing what to do and feeling so defeated and physically, slumped and all that other stuff. I'd much rather feel exhausted and invigorated than the latter.
Totally makes sense. Yeah, you gotta be in the middle there where you can start to grow and find the people that'll push you. Like I remember at the last RTA event I was at, they were talking about, someone asked me one of my biggest takeaways, well, a lot, but one of my biggest things was I was sitting there talking between 2 entrepreneurs and they're talking about fractional ownership in a jet. And the one says, yeah, I was looking into it. The other one says, yeah, I got one. It's great. My wife gets to fly, blah, blah, blah. Talking about how it works. They're like, how much is it? And it's like, well, it's $150,000 a month and you get so many miles. It's so worth it. And I was like, $150,000 a month. I'm not there yet. But I want a jet now. So I was like, all right, now I need to get a jet. So like, I got to work a little harder. So just being around that is like, okay, I got to like go a little harder. Like I got to, figure this out. We'll figure out how to get a jet.
100%. And like you said, just being around those people, it raises that bar of what could be normal. That used to seem just like, that's crazy. That's only for like, mega millionaire, famous rich people. Like you start to realize it doesn't have to be. It could be you. Yeah,
and you can be the famous rich people.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And it's great that, you and I are in a similar part of our journey, and not everybody's there. I mean, for a lot of people it is just getting sober. Like that's the big part of it, or just, finishing 75
and one day at a time.
Yeah.
Like, for the people, I have actually one of my really good friends is getting sober. I think she's 8 months sober, which is super exciting. And it's just one day at a time. And I mean, you're in that industry obviously and helping people, but like even 75 hard, like people like, how do you do it? Honestly, I just focus on one day. And sometimes, and that's how I've done most of my life, to be quite honest. And I didn't realize I did it until I've actually analyzed, like, how do I do things? But I'm like, all right, tomorrow, like I remember I get up at 4:20 every morning, not 4:20 because it's 4:20. I don't know why 4:20, but now it's like,
thank you for clarifying that.
Anyway, it became my time because 4:30, that 10 minutes just was, I don't know, it really helped me. So I switched to 4:20 from 4:30 in 2019. And we get up 6 days a week at that time or earlier. Normally it's earlier because I wake up before my alarm. And everyone's like, well, how do you get up at that time? And I'm like, I remember when I started like 5 and 4:30 and stuff. And I hated it. I wake up in the morning and I'd be like, okay, tomorrow I can sleep in. And so I'd do the day. And then the next day I'd be like, okay, tomorrow I can sleep in. And I did that. And I wasn't trying to lie to myself. I really meant tomorrow I can sleep in. But I would get up until it eventually just became a habit. And then I do the same thing with my business. Like tomorrow I won't make calls. Tomorrow I won't go talk to new people. Tomorrow I won't. And I tell myself that like over and over and over again. But then it was tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, and tomorrow never comes because it's true. And so I just didn't know that I was like I said, I wasn't trying to fake my brain out of it. I really did mean tomorrow. And I just kept building that, habit. So I feel like, 75 hard, it's the same way. One more workout, one more gallon of water. Tomorrow I'll quit. I was telling myself that throughout my last batch. Tomorrow I'll quit. Tomorrow I'll quit. This is my last workout. Well, let's do one more. Okay, let's do and so I do that all the time. And I feel that a lot of people don't. And I feel they're looking at the end like, okay, I got 74 more days. I got one more day. You got one more moment. You got one more minute. You got one more. And if you can actually, and I've just got a book called The Power of One More. If you can do one more day, then eventually you start to build that habit, and you're sober, and you quit all the things that whatever you're wanting to do, and started all the things you wanted to do. But I mean, for me, that I feel like, and I don't know if that's something that is actually talked about in programs, but that's just what works for me, is like one day, just one day.
Yeah, well, definitely it is, because, when you start, and we call it like future tripping or obsessing over the past, you're not in the present. And that's where mistakes and anxiety and all these things can happen, because you're not just planting yourself in for right now, this is what I'm doing, and allowing that to be. And just to reference even 75 hard, the first time I failed it, I was like on day 50 or so, and I was looking at the finish line. I was like, oh man, here I am. I've crossed over half. I can't believe I've done this.
Right.
And not that I got complacent, but I quit paying attention to the little details. I wasn't checking those boxes off every night. I did my 2 workouts. I didn't even think about it. And I sprung out of bed the next morning and went, oh crap. Like, I switched up my schedule. I did both workouts indoors yesterday. I did them both, so I didn't even think about it. And that's a fail in 75 hard. But I was future tripping. I was already planning like what I was going to do when I was done, or how I was going to feel, or what was going to happen. And I was not in the present. And this is how relapse happens. This is how, things not good happen to us, is when we're either obsessing over the past, or we're future tripping about what's going to happen in the future. And so I think you make a really valid point with that as well. And I agree with you. The one more, I do the same thing. I'm like, oh, this weekend, I'm going to give myself that downtime. So let me just get through to this weekend. I'm going to be here. I'm going to do this. And then the weekend comes, and I'm like, oh, well, now that the weekend's here, I could do this, this, and this. Look at all this extra time. And then I don't end up doing any of it, like you. But that kind of motivated me all week to just keep going forward.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it. So it helps. So hopefully that helps someone that's listening.
Sure. And sobriety is the same way. If I can just get to this milestone, if I could just get to a year, if I could just do that. And we get a lot of people, like younger people, who are like, I can't say I'm going to give up weed for the rest of my life. We're like, okay, well, let's see how you feel in a month. Let's reevaluate that. Like, we're not saying for forever. When you're 18 years old, forever sounds like forever. So, let's reevaluate that in 30 days and see how you're feeling. Can we do another 30 days? Can we do another? And sort of motivate ourselves to not commit to forever, but what is confrontable to commit to right now.
Amen. Yeah. And I think that makes it it definitely makes it a lot easier. Bite-sized pieces, and really knowing how you think. Like I said, I cut out alcohol because I can't walk when I drink. And so that, that wasn't fun for me anymore. And I could probably have one, but I know I can't have one. So that's not, when I drink, I drank. And so, like I said, addictive personalities. So I was all or out. Same thing with, like, I cut out French fries. Why did I cut out French fries? Like, because I can cut out French fries. People are like, well, you have potato wedges. I know they're same freaking unhealthy. I get it. However, not everybody has potato wedges, but everyone has potato fries. So if I cut out something that's mass, there's way less of them that I eat. And so I'm like, perfect. And same with, like, chocolate. I just don't eat, like, I'll have granola bars with chocolate. And it's fantastic. But I just kind of cut out mostly, like, chocolate bars, just like big things. So, cause your weaknesses. And I know that I'm either going to do all of it or nothing. I don't really have that in between yet. And so it's like, I'll do all of it or I'll do nothing. I cut out coffee. Why? Because when I drink coffee, I drink like a pot of it. So I'm like, just cut it all out. Like, so knowing your weaknesses, quote unquote, Andy said that, and it was the first RT event that I went to, I think in 2018 or 2019, right after they started. And he just went up there and he says, like, peanut butter is my nemesis, I guess, or whatever. I'll just eat lots of peanut butter, and that's where he gained all the weight. And so I just have it in my pantry, and it's got a locked pantry, and Emily has a key. And I thought, see, I used to view that as weakness. I was like, well, that's weak. You can't control your urges. But now I've realized that's not weak. You know your weaknesses. So, like, in sobriety, like, don't go to a bar, don't have alcohol in your house. When I was doing 75 hard, it wasn't, like, eating wise, it wasn't too hard because I don't have kids. So I don't have little things lying around like treats. And so whatever's in my house, I was allowed to eat. So, whatever's in my house I could eat.
Yeah.
So that was relatively easy. I'm like, and so just setting yourself up for those wins and knowing that it's not even like I said, I used to view that stuff as weakness, but it's not. It's just knowing what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, and building your life so that, like, if you know that you want to hit snooze a million times, put your phone or put your alarm or whatever, somewhere you have to get out of bed, whatever, like, set yourself up for success. And because we only have so much willpower. Read this recently too. We only have so much willpower. And so high achievers are not necessarily more disciplined. They've just built habits so that their life is easier and there's less willpower involved. And I believe that 100%.
Yeah, agreed. And same. And that's why I think where the beauty of 75 Hard comes in, the beauty of our program, because it allows enough time to establish those healthy routines of what is successful, and avoid and be away from the things that are not successful. And then anytime you can create new healthy habits and not think about those old habits, that is the key to success. But it's giving yourself a big enough foundation and a runway and space to actually create those healthy habits. And I think that's the beauty of 75 Hard, because it's 75 straight days. It's not you get a day off on the weekend. It's not you get a little break here. It's not any of that. It's like it's all in or it's nothing. And that is where the magic comes from. And same with sobriety. If you're like, I'm really good all week and I just have a little cheat weekend, but then I get right back on. Or even with diets, like that was my yo-yo diet. Like I'd be good all week and then I would earn like a cheat day on the weekend.
Pizza. Speaking of
yeah,
diet,
and it's like I never did better. I would, I was just like swimming so hard all week, like paddling as fast as I could just to maintain like this same level, as opposed to allowing myself to actually level up. And I think so much of that comes from, well, we talked about consistency, but also sabotage, where it's like, are you okay with allowing yourself to succeed without sabotaging yourself? Do you love yourself enough to be okay with that? And that's a whole nother realm that we could get into.
Yeah.
But it also plays into
right there.
Oh yeah, I mean, we could go deep into that one. Do you love yourself enough to allow yourself to succeed? And so I think a lot of people can get tripped up on that as well. But again, if you're just creating those little healthy habits of consistency, that is where the true change comes from.
Yeah. And people say that to me. They're like, what do you mean you don't take any days off? I'm like, I don't, like, from my reading, from my, meditation, I do sleep in on Sundays. That's my only day allowed. But like, otherwise it's just consistent. And honestly, a lot of it is a fear factor that if I miss, I will fall down fast. Yep. So like, I think Ed talks about that he's not actually as disciplined as people think he is. And I feel like I know I'm the same way. It's not really that I'm disciplined. It's that I know how weak I am. And I know if I let myself go once, I'm just spiraled. Like, it's so easy for me to spiral. And I know that I just don't let myself spiral. But if I let myself do one thing, like, I know me and I'm like gone. So I'm like, it's not that I'm so disciplined. It's that I'm so undisciplined that I have to have regimented habits and I can't let myself off the hook, because if I do, everything falls off the hook.
Yeah, 1,000%. I'm the same way. Like I said, I was so overweight that fear of going back there, of that undisciplined person, of that miserable, sad person. I don't ever want to go back there. And that definitely drives me. Like, I was surprised. I finished phase 1 back in September of last year, did not start 75 Hard again. And I started back at 75 because I didn't do the whole Live Hard program within a year. Not till February, but I maintained, because I had been on 75 Hard like the majority of the last year and a half because of the failures, that I was able to maintain all of those healthy habits, whether I was quote unquote on the program or not, and not lose all those gains. And again, it talked about the consistency, but also the fear. Like, I finally realized, like, my mind started remembering how bad I felt when I failed, and starting back over and doing all that work again. Like,
that's probably why I couldn't quit.
We have the benefit of years. We've failed.
Well, I couldn't quit phase 2. I was like 15 days in, which is halfway from phase 2. And I was like, if I quit, I'll have to do it again. And that like, that's why I did 75 Hard. And I went through the whole thing and I got it all done in the first go. Cause like listening to your story, like when I hear so many people, like, I'm like, that just like, ugh. I'm like, I could do it once. I can't do it again and again. Like, I'm
Right.
like, I'm
Right.
like, so like, I got to do it.
Yeah. I got
Because
to
I
nail it
can't
the
do
first
it
time.
again.
It's true. By the time I finished 75 hard last year, so I'd failed twice at like 50, day 60, and then I was immediately starting. I was so exhausted by the time I finally finished.
Holy.
It definitely moved me to get done because I was like, I can't keep doing this. And those are the words of advice I try to give people is like, just nail it the first time. Don't put yourself
Yeah, then
through
it's not
that.
so bad. Like, I mean, it wasn't so bad, but man, when you don't, then like I hear like those stories, and I like one of my agents did it too. Same thing. By the time they were done, they were like 100 and something days. I don't remember what it was, right? Because
Yeah.
like, and I was like, oh, like that sounds like it's not that I'm more tough, it's that I'm like, I can't do that. Like, I don't want,
Right.
I'm like, wow. I'm like,
Yeah.
I gotta just do it easy. You know, when I was building my business, I built it all cold market, making friends in like public places. And I was a truck driver, so that was very uncomfortable for me. And my goal was to get 3 new numbers a day until I had a promotion when I came full time. And I remember days, same thing, like way back then. I remember days I was like 10 o'clock at night and I hadn't hit my 3 numbers. I'd gone out, I just hadn't talked to anybody because I was scared. And so I hadn't got 3 numbers, and I was like, okay, got to get my 3 numbers. And that's a thing. And I did it every day for 4 months until I had my promotion. And there was days I got 10 numbers, days I got 25, but I always got a minimum of 3. And what some people do, and I see this happen a lot, is they're like, okay, well, tomorrow I'll get 6 numbers. No, that's not the freaking point. The point is you have to do it every day. I'm going to read 10 pages from a good book every day. Every day. That means that, you know, not 20 pages tomorrow and 0 today, every day. And that mindset is something that I see a lot of people struggle with. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I just called out one of my team, actually, they're doing a program, and they reached out and they said, well, I did everything on the program except reading. I'm like, then go get up and read. And she did. Now 3 days, I'm so proud of her. Like, got up at midnight. It's not about getting it done, but like she still got it done. She got up and finished her reading and then went back to bed. I'm like, girl, that's awesome. Like, now you're creating a freaking new track in your mind, and you'll start to build that confidence because you're like, dang, I'm doing things no one else is doing. It's like little things, like reading a book, like that's super easy, but I'm doing things no one else is doing because most people, or a lot of people, I should say at least, you know, well, you know what? It's like 10 o'clock. I'm tired. I'll just read it tomorrow. Or I'll do it tomorrow. I'll make extra calls for my business tomorrow. Tomorrow. What if tomorrow never comes? And you know, if there's something I've learned from MMS, and I mean, you have a heart thing, so you get it too. We're not promised tomorrow. We're not even promised the rest of today. I mean, I could drop dead right now. So like, we're not promised anything. And keeping that mindset of like, tomorrow I'll do it. What if tomorrow doesn't come? You know, are you okay with that? If you can already, I mean, some people are like, well, I'm gone. It doesn't matter. But are you okay with that? Like, did you reach out? You know, I saw my mom and dad yesterday, and I see them all the time because I always think about like, what happens when something happens to them, will I be like, man, that one time I should have just freaking gone and seen them.
Yeah.
I don't want to feel that way.
Right.
Ever. Right. I feel that about one uncle that I feel like I should have gone and saw, and it's not that strong, but there's people in my life that I also saw that like my grandpa. I got home from Australia and I saw my grandpa. This was like 11 years ago. Got home from Australia, went and saw my grandpa. He had ALS, and thank God I did, because the next week he died. And if I hadn't seen him, like I can't imagine what I would have felt. Like, dang, I should have gone. So like, same thing with everything in our life. We're putting it off for tomorrow, but what if tomorrow never comes? Like, someone asked me the other day, why are you so urgent? I'm like, because life is urgent. You have no idea where something's going to change in your life. Yeah. And the MS, of course, when you get something like that, it's kind of like a second awakening. I was already that way before. Just reminds you, like, yeah, one day I could be walking, the next day I could be in a wheelchair. Easy. Now it's easy. Anyone could be like that. It's just now it's awakening. You've got a heart thing. Who knows? That could act up on you, and freaking who knows, right? Like, but we all have that. That's the thing. We need to think that way long before we have health things that bring us to our awareness on a bigger front, because get hit by a freaking car tomorrow, anybody in the world, like, you know, house burned down, whatever. Things happen so fast. We have no clue. Just sometimes the physical things give us that awareness of like, whoa, we need to like smarten up now.
Well, 100%. I mean, those are the things that plague me. It's not like I did that and failed, or I did that and it was sad. It was like I only live with the regrets of where I had the thought I should do this and I didn't do it.
Do it.
It's those regrets that haunt me. Nothing else does. Like trying and failing, okay, that sucks. CrossFit was the
So
same
true.
way. Like, oh, I'm so tired today. I'm exhausted. I'm going to do the responsible thing and not work out. But then I obsess over it all day. It's not like I even bought myself a good relaxation day because I was thinking I really could have gone. I really should have gone. And at no point
And then
have
you
I
just
ever,
go and you're like, oh, now I'm better.
100% of the time, like every single time, it's like I don't want to go. I go, I work out. Not once have I left a workout saying I wish I hadn't done that. Not one time. But again, you and I have the benefit of time where we've failed in these areas, so we now understand how to sort of prevent them from happening in our lives, which is what I hope our listeners get out of this. It's not like we
Yes.
know all the answers. We just happen to have
Just
tried.
starting on a journey.
Yeah,
We're
we've
like-
tried many
we're like
things, some
toddlers.
successful, some haven't been, but there's a lot of good takeaways here that you could apply to literally any part of your life in
Yes.
any situation, and it works in that situation for you.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and I'll also say, just even like, and again, this correlates with sobriety or recovery or whatever, like the second you start giving yourself that little out, like, oh, I'm going to do the program but not read. Oh, I'm going to do this but not that part of it. Oh, I'm going to give myself a day off. Like the second you start sort of letting yourself have that
Negotiating.
door, yeah, it's just a downward spiral quickly, especially if you have a workaholic mentality and addiction or, any of these things where you start giving yourself a little leeway in these areas where you shouldn't, and you start spiraling quick. And that's why, we never want to give people permission to not be 100% all in on things.
Yeah, you're like, oh, just one drink. Like if you're dealing with that, and that's like for me, like I said, when I quit, it was because obviously I couldn't walk, and that just wasn't fun for me. And then, but then I was like, everyone's like, well, you could have one, and I was like, I've thought about it for a while. First couple of years, I was like, I like a Guinness. Like that sounded really good. I like Guinness, and I was like, Guinness. And I mean, I'd be fine after Guinness. I know that, except that I probably wouldn't be mentally. And so I haven't had it. And, it's interesting. Honestly, I'm at the point where I don't want it. And I quit coffee quite a while ago. And I ordered a decaf at a get together on Saturday. And I had one sip. And then I'm like, I'm done. Give me some tea. And I was like, why am I even trying? Like, why? Just because it's cool, it's the in thing? Like, let it go. It's done. We're done with it ever. We're done with drinking. We're done with coffee. Anything's wrong with that in moderation. I'm not saying that, but for me, I'm like, we're done. Like, I don't even want it anymore. Right. Now I've lost, we were at my friends and they were having shots and I was like, yeah, that looks like, I remember those days and it was fun. And I smelled the whiskey and it was really good whiskey. It was really expensive whiskey. It was really good. And I was like, oh, it smells good, but no desire anymore even to want it, which is fantastic because it's like, I just don't even, it's gone.
Right. And I think those are the negotiations when people aren't that solid that, one won't hurt. It's that social pressure of it looks like fun. It looks like what's one. It's not going to be that big of a deal. And it takes a lot of years of stringing together, long-term sobriety where you can get to the place like you are where it's like now instead of thinking about the fun, I'm thinking about, but how's that going to make me feel afterwards? How am I mentally going to feel the next day? How am I physically going to feel that night? And focusing in on that as opposed to and this is a society we live in, this is going to feel great right now.
Well, and interesting enough, I was one of the rare ones that doesn't have hangovers.
Oh.
And I would, quit drinking at 4 and I'd be up at 6 and good to go again. So I never had that bad association. However, the reason I guess for me, I don't want it. I'm just like, what's the point? Why?
Yeah.
Why do I want to drink it?
Right.
Because what was I trying to prove? And I realized that through it, I was trying to prove I was competitive. And so just reading about my personality, competitive can become ruthless, but competitive was what I was. So I wanted to prove I could outdrink anyone, and I could outdrink anyone. I could outdo any, it was a competitive thing, which isn't healthy in that space. It's not healthy. Competitive can be healthy with yourself, but not in that space. And I was like, okay. And then the same thing when you talk about workaholism, 2020 came, and that coming into that new year is when I decided, I read a book about the power of prayer, and I decided, God took out my legs, or I took out my legs, or however my legs are taken out. And for the purpose of proving that he's powerful, and it's not about me, because my workaholism, my work habits, my work ethic, which was phenomenal, I could make things happen. I knew it. I could outwork, I could outperform, I could out whatever anyone, and I would make things happen. Once I got taken that away and I couldn't physically force myself to make things happen the same way, and I still am working on that, I had to I'm like, okay, God put me here on a purpose, and he needs to prove that it's him and not me. So the reason I win, the reason I do things is not me, it's him. And so when I physically couldn't prove it, so then coming in that, I'm like, all right, what am I feeling led to do? So 2020, I decided to take Sundays off, which for me was hard. That still probably took a couple of years. Again, like, it was hard. Like, well, let's just do that one appointment. No, Ange, you can't do that one appointment. You cannot. You have a personality, know your weaknesses. I could not say, so I'm proud of myself. I've not done one appointment on a Sunday, since 2020. Not one.
Angela, it's a Sunday and we're both here doing this.
Exactly. This isn't an appointment though, right? So I haven't built my business on a Sunday.
Yes.
I spend time with my team. They're my family. Like, that's a whole, but I haven't got in front of a client on a Sunday.
There you go.
And that was because I knew and Sunday's a busy day. If I did one, let's do one more. And why not this one? And pretty soon my Sundays were normally my busiest day. Yep. I have 6, 7, 8, 10 appointments on a Sunday. And I know I could go back to that. But then interesting enough, when I took that out, because it was hard for me to take out, I just maxed out the other days hardcore more. I'm like, I got 6 days to get everything done. So we're going to work harder and be more organized. And then, our business grew 167% that year. So we took off a day and we grew 167%.
Interesting.
So my friends are like, maybe you should take off 2 days, maybe 3 days.
Right. Yeah.
Something to be said for that. But it's true. But it's like, again, it was the same thing. I couldn't do just one. Mm-hmm. And so knowing that, a lot of really, people with addictions, it's not a bad thing that you've got an addictive personality. It's just put your addictive personality to the right uses.
Right. Yeah, I actually just did a post on that this week. Like, just because I can do it doesn't mean I should, just because I can sit in my sauna and do my work and do my hot yoga and do 15 workouts and get all this work done. Should I be doing that? Is that the greatest good for my health, to be sweating profusely for 4 straight hours? I don't know that it is.
Right.
Just because I can sit.
If you can have a 1 beer, 1 drink, or 1 whatever, but is that good? That's where I was like, well, actually, alcohol is really not that good for you. Not the kind I was drinking. I heard wine can be good, but
none of it is. I mean, they all have side effects besides the alcohol portion. There's the sugar, there's the gluten, there's all this other stuff that is also very bad for your body, not just the straight alcohol too.
Right. So it's like, well, should I? What's the point of it? Why? If I can just drink water, or whatever, something healthier, then why is it just socially I have to do this to be no, just be different. It's okay to be different. No big deal. You can still have fun, and just start to change that. And I think in our society, like I said, I've noticed that drinking is, it's a big part of our social aspects. Yeah. But, and to say no, I don't know if I could have said no if I would have quit drinking if it hadn't been for the MS either, which, right or wrong. And like I said, I'm not saying drinking itself is wrong, but I'm glad, because I couldn't have probably said no and said oh, I just don't want to drink. I was able to say no easy because I was like, I can't walk. And they're like, okay, and no one would bother me. But if I hadn't been able to say that, I would have been pushed harder, and I would have there's no reason I wouldn't have quit. Put it that way. So because of the MS, once again, like I said, it's taught me so much. I was able to kind of use it in order to quit drinking, which I'm super grateful now that I'm not drinking, because what's the point? Now I'm like, well, there's no point. But I would never have quit. And I know that. There's no reason. And coffee, why would I quit coffee? Why would I quit dessert? Why would I quit French? Any of the stuff I've quit really as far as health that's good for my health overall, I probably wouldn't quit. But being in that health situation made me quit them, and it'd be easier to quit them because I could use it to say, hey, this is why, instead of just it'd be harder to say, oh, I just decided to quit drinking. Well, why did you decide to quit drinking? Oh, you have to explain yourself.
Yeah.
As opposed to just I just can't walk. It made it easier in that sense. So
100%. Well, and that was the problem. When I was growing up, there was the big, just say no. It's it's not that easy. Nobody's going to accept, yeah, just no. It's like, well, why? And then they act weird around you and you act weird around you, and you're like, it's an uncomfortable situation. And there really does need to be a bigger driving force than just saying no. Like, and we see that with rehab. Nobody's coming in just because one day they decide, I don't want to do this anymore. There's always an impetus that's behind, I need to get help. I want to get help. I'm ready for help. It's usually, there's always a catalyst. I'm going to go to prison. I'm going to, something's going to happen. But very rarely, very, very rarely is it just, I just don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's hard. Our society pushes you to do stuff that's not healthy.
Yeah.
And you feel guilty if you don't do stuff that's not healthy, which is really unhealthy.
Right.
Like, what do you mean you're working out?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, we've got a weird, but then that's why your associations though, like, when I'm around the people I'm around now, they don't push me to drink. Like, there's a few people that I've had around, of course, in the past couple of years that are like, well, you could have one, or, but I don't have the friends that I used to have. Obviously, that would have been like, well, they're just not my friends anymore, because it's just a different, they would have pushed, like, they would have been like, well, what do you mean? Why can't you just have one? Why don't you want, like, and that's a lot of it is dissociation. Like you said, growing up, there are people that you're just like, I don't drink. I'm like, okay. Cause a lot of their friends don't drink. But you get into some of the higher entrepreneur circles. I've been in lots of them where a lot of people don't drink just decided not to drink. It was hard for their business, hard for their marriage, whatever. And they just quit. And, and they never even quote had a problem. They just decided to quit. And so you're around those kind of people more and more where it's like, oh, I'm just not drinking. And they don't even ask why anymore. Whereas in the past, if I was in those circles, it'd be like, well, why aren't you drinking? Are you pregnant?
Right. Oh, yeah. That's always a good go-to, especially, yeah. Well, and also, a lot of times it more highlights what's going on with them than you. And it took me a few years to figure that out too. Like, me not drinking was making them feel uncomfortable. And it was shining a light on them that they didn't want. And so their ideas about it was to find out what was wrong about me as opposed to looking inward. And again, that's just something that takes time to be able to see in other people that it's really stemming from their own stuff and it's not you at all. But, you got to be pretty strong to be able to look and see that that's really the motive. It's you're not drinking is making them uncomfortable. So they want you to drink so that they feel okay.
Right. Exactly. And I'm like, oh, just go ahead and drink. Like, I don't care. And I'm glad when my friends do, because like, I don't care.
Right.
And I want them, if they feel like they want to drink, have a freaking drink. Like, that's great. And then that's that. And I'm glad that, like I said, too, that most of my friends are like that. Cause then some of the times you have those ones that are like, well, if you're not drinking, I'm not drinking. I'm like, no, drink.
Yeah.
Like, just do you. I'll do me. You do you. Like, why is it such a weird society we're in that it's like, well, if you're drinking water, then I have to drink water. No, just like if you're drinking alcohol, I don't have to drink alcohol. But we can drink different things. Like, whatever.
Easy.
Okay.
Easy. Yeah, totally.
So weird. It's kind of weird when you think about it, but
it is. Well, and there's just so many layers. I mean, you and I could talk for hours. A lot of
and know lots about the layers. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, it definitely has been an amazing conversation, Angela, and I'm really glad that you came on, and I really hope that we were able to reach some listeners who, obviously your path hasn't been one with addiction, but what you've overcome and how and why you've had to overcome it are very similar. And I think that's the underlying thing of this podcast that I've learned is like not we all, but those of us that have overcome some kind of adversity, whether self-induced or not. Usually it's self-induced. If you dig deep enough, somehow we created this. Just, what we did to sort of overcome that and come out better than before. And that's your journey. I love it. It resonates with me a lot. I think you're an amazing person. And I'm really glad that we had you on the show today.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me on the show. And you're absolutely incredible too. And I'm excited to get together this next year.
Awesome. All right, cool. Well, we will I'll be seeing you very soon. Could be next month in May. Yeah. So we'll be seeing each other very soon. Yeah. And to all of our listeners, thank you for tuning in. This has been another amazing episode with today was Angela Bradford, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Thanks. All right. So I'm still working on that outro that we may or may not keep that, but there it is.
I love it.
Okay, cool. So I am going to and this. I'm going to go change my dress. We're going to flip the camera around so I have a different background, and then we'll immediately do yours.
Okay, I'll log in. I'll go to the bathroom.